Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chill Like a Mother podcast. I'm Kayla Huszar, the host, and I'm recently trying on the title Mom Guilt Therapist. I'm a registered social worker, and my main mode in how I help people is really around expressive arts therapy and mindfulness. And I have Danik with me here today. We were together. We both just realized how fast time flies because we did an episode together in 2024 and we didn't think it was that long ago. It's episode 34. We're now in the 80s of the numbered of episodes. And so we didn't really want that reminder, but there it is. It's here. It's in the room.
Thank you for having me. And you know what? The consistency at which you've been going at this podcasting thing is really incredible. I mean, you're a mom, you're a therapist, you're busy. You also have your own things going on, neurodivergence of it all, ADHD things going on. I mean, good for you. Good for you. I wasn't able to do that yet, but I look up to you.
Thank you. Thank you. For any of you who are watching the video of this, I didn't even bother to clean up the mess that is behind me. You can see Winnie the Pooh under a pile of pillows in this Lego area that I've got here. So not everything is as it seems. Some of the recent things that have been connecting me with Danik over the last couple of weeks, she had released a series on her own podcast and on Instagram around a story involving her great-grandmother being institutionalized while she was in the thick of mothering. And Danik, can you give at least my audience a bit of a background of that story, because we're going to kind of use it maybe to frame how we talk about intergenerational trauma and how we inherit things that we don't even know, like they're not ours. They don't feel like ours. They don't feel like they fit in our body and our minds, but yet we can't maybe put our thumb on it, but it feels like it's pulsing through us.
Yeah, totally. Pulsing through us. Yes. So Simone is my great grandmother on my mother's side and then on her father's side. So she is the mother of my grandfather and my grandfather is my mother's dad. There we go. So that's who she is. She's a Francophone woman that lived in rural Ontario in the 50s, well, up until the 50s. And she lived very isolated from everybody in her family. She grew up having a great childhood, comes from a farming family. So they didn't have much. It was, very much based in, how can I say, being self-sufficient. So they were self-sufficient, had everything to help with their health, to be, healthy, to have a roof over their head. But, there wasn't any surplus. And she married this guy, my great grandfather. And then she also had physical health concerns. I like to say that she was botched by one of the hospitals with her medical health concern. And what happened is she moved away to the next village, really. But in those days, in rural Ontario, I mean, even just to go to the next village, you would need to have a car. You would need to have some way of transportation. You would need to have the means to have that means of transportation. And for my great grandmother, Simone, they basically had nothing. So it was still horses and carriage, even if it wasn't the 50s where most people had cars and all of that. What happened was, at some point, when she had all of her 5 kids, her youngest was 5 years old. My grandfather was the youngest 4 years old. My grandfather probably 6 years old at that point, 6, 7. Oh my goodness. Okay. And my great aunts were a little older, kind of like tween years. What happened was my great grandmother, she developed these visual and auditory hallucinations. And the hallucinations were always around the theme of hypervigilance when it came to the children's safety. And what we know now, and that has been confirmed by my grandfather and his siblings, was that their father was quite abusive, and not just to my great grandmother, but also to the kids. And so what happened was a series of events kind of unfolded all at once. My great grandmother lost her dad, and then her physical health declined quite drastically. lost a lot of weight. She was a very petite woman. She wasn't even 5 feet tall, and she was well under 100 pounds. So we can see, the mental image, very, very frail. And what happened was she also developed these patterns where she would warn people of bad things that could happen. She even tried to end her life, and she was caught. And back then, especially in these very heavily Catholic communities, that's a big no-no in the eyes of the religion. So everybody was kind of freaking out. And what happened was there was basically assessments done on her, and they decided, all right, let's get her to the local-ish mental institution back in the day, where asylums were kind of a thing still. The name of the institution wasn't like asylum for the mentally ill, for example, like some other places. It had turned into the Ontario Hospital, and it was located in Brockville, Ontario. So everybody in this community, I'm in the Ottawa region, but everybody in the Ottawa region and in Eastern Ontario, when we mention Brockville, everybody thinks of that place. Oh yeah, oh, careful, you're going to get sent to Brockville. Oh, careful. We knew what that meant. And that was kind of always, teased around, but it's a real thing. And my great grandmother was sent there. Basically, her husband brought her in the car, or, in somebody's car. I don't know who. He had to borrow one, I guess. And he brought her over there, and she stayed for 3 months. And then soon after, she unfortunately passed away due to her medical condition worsening. And she was just basically a lot of neglect. There was lots of focus on her mental health symptoms and on the hallucinations and how she was deviant from the norm from back then. But there was no focus at all on her physical well-being. And I'm not a doctor, but we know that when the physical aspects are not taken care of at all, we know how there can be this risk of mental health concerns, especially around psychosis and any sort of symptom linking to schizophrenia. So she ended up being diagnosed schizophrenic catatonic, but there's just a spidey sense in me that's telling me, well, I don't know that that's an appropriate diagnosis given everything she had gone through. Maybe that's what it is, but there's something telling me, like, I also need to take into consideration the fact that she would have probably gotten multiple concussion after concussion back home, but also her other aspects of the physical health. And then what happened is I was like, you know what? My family has lots of trauma. I need to understand why my grandfather is that way, why he married my grandmother, why they had children, and why my mother is the way she is today. And so I was like, all right, I need to look at the documents of it all. So in 2024, I decided to reach out to somebody who had done a PhD in the area, and her main focus was patient stories of Brockville. And I reached out to her. I was like, you know what? I need to go through the Ontario archives in Toronto. I don't want to get there physically. Can you help me? Help me, please. And she did, and she was incredible. And her name is Kira, so shout out to Kira. And she helped me for genealogy stuff. It's really quick. Okay. The people want to help. It's quick. And literally by like 3 days, I had an email sitting in my inbox with this medical file with pictures of her. I had seen pictures of her before when she was thriving, when my grandfather was a toddler. She had beautiful curly hair that remind me of my daughter's hair, actually, like the color. And in her file, there was this woman that I didn't even recognize. She had become so thin, and her hair were just like kind of flat on her head. But then I recognized her jaw and how her jaw is the same jawline as my grandfather. I was like, okay, it's her. It's her. So then I entered this journey of reading line by line, of researching the terms I didn't understand. And yeah, it just helped me understand so much on the intergenerational trauma patterns we all got. And like you said, they're pulsing through us. It's just that we don't have language. And finally, it gave me language. And also, it provided lots of healing for me, for my mom. And I even sent what I found to my grandparents. And, we always thought, well, she went there and that was it. And she was very much a submissive woman. But even through her mental illness, even through her physical illness and how frail and fragile she was, she still always mentioned how she was scared for her kids, how her kids are being ill-treated at home. And every opportunity she got, honestly, reading through those lines, any interview she was given by the board kind of assessing her readiness to leave or whatnot, she would always talk about her kids. So I was like, okay, there you go. And also she tried to leave earlier than anticipated. She sent a letter to her husband saying, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Come pick me up. And then the husband sent a letter to the doctor in charge being like, well, are you sure my wife is telling me it's okay? And then the doctor was like, no, actually, don't come. We'll tell you when to come. So she tried with any, opportunity she was given. She tried to get the heck out of there, go back to her kids. So that was really healing. That's kind of a nutshell.
Yes. And so I feel like the question that's out in the world that maybe even myself hadn't put words to until I went to my first adult therapy experience. And I remember her asking me really important questions about the generation, kind of those curious questions around why I might be doing what I'm doing, why my perception might be this, or why I might believe this about myself or mothering or parenting or any of those things, which that therapy was a catalyst from my giving birth to my first son. And so I think the question out in the world is, I maybe know this thing is happening, but I don't know how to put my finger on it. And so how do people put their fingers on it? How do they start to question what might be theirs and what might not be theirs?
Yeah, good question. I would say that the first thing is, if you feel like your body sensation isn't something that's new, if it feels quite old, or even if it is new, if it feels like nothing you've really experienced before. And I'm going to give context to that. With my second child, who's a daughter, and there's lots of mother wounds and stuff going on in my family. One night I was rocking her, I think it was 2 a.m., and I had this surge in my body. And I was like, is this a postpartum anxiety? Because I had postpartum anxiety with my first, who's a boy. And it just wasn't the same type of sensation. I couldn't put my finger on it, actually. I couldn't. But I was like, you know what? This is weird. I'm a therapist. I also know what anxiety is supposed to feel like.
Yes.
This is anxiety, but it's almost like I'm fearing something that I don't even know exists. I'm fearing something that feels like doomsday for me. Anyways, that's what it felt like. And that's because there is this theme in my family of moms don't stick around for a long time. And so that was kind of my body's way of going, well, you need to stick around here, or you're actually the first mom who gets to stick around in a very long time. So that was what it meant to me. But I guess it comes back down to how your body's reacting. And there's different types of anxieties. There's different types of even, depressive symptoms that we might be going through. We can feel the difference, right? When there's more so seasonal affective disorder, depression kind of coming through. We're we're feeling some type of way that's really associated to that. And then whoop, sunshine comes back and it's spring forward and it gets a little better. We can feel that in our bones, in our body. But then when it's something a little older, there's always this kind of confusion. And I think it needs to be said that the confusion can really set in and happen, and it's not a bad thing. It's just your body giving you data. And there's always a way to make it make sense. It's just that right now in the moment, you might.
So what you named is having an awareness. of what's happening in the body, and then kind of knowing what to do with that sensation or what to do with that feeling or where to take it. And there's I almost wanna ask or talk about like the stuck places of that, like when you know something, but you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
The episode that I actually listened to of yours on the weekend, ironically, was you talking about mothers being able to care for themselves. And so the rhetoric out in the world is that children should come first, right? But you talked about this kind of like chicken or egg thing. So if the kids come first, then inherently, if we only look at that on paper, then mom is not first, right? Or potentially mom's last. But if mom's first, then the kids are not first. And there's definitely rhetoric out there around what is selfish, what is self-sacrifice, what is all those things. And so in this, when you know something, but you're stuck there and you know that your kids should come first, you should be able to sit there in the middle of the night, rocking your daughter and have it be the thing that you do. Right. And I've come up against many of these moments. Like, I know that I shouldn't lose my shit, but it's happening. I can't stop it from happening necessarily. There's a muscle and a practice there. But what about for the people who maybe know that something is pulsing through their body, but they're stuck in it?
Yeah. I think that in our day and age, there's always this pressure to figure it out. So it's totally fine if what you're feeling is a feeling of being stuck. What needs to happen is that you're taking a mental note of it. That's what I encourage people to do. That's certainly what I do. Just taking a mental note of it and being like, all right, so it's 2 a.m. I'm rugging my baby. And I'm taking a mental note of that because I'm having this weird sensation in my body. I don't know what to make of it.
Okay. We're going to leave you there on a bit of a cliffhanger. Our next episode, because I split this one into two, is we're going to go into what if the secret of breaking cycles lies not just in the tools we might use, but proactively using them. And so we discuss more about the chicken or egg and the mom before kids or the kids before mom or what that looks like. And so since recording this conversation with Danik, here's what I've come up with. If kids come first, moms need to be ground zero. And if moms are ground zero, then we need to understand what it looks like to navigate intergenerational trauma or patterns or things that we've inherited. How the ways of anxiety or overwhelm or overstimulation shows up for us. And so in the next episode, we break down what the early signs of overwhelm look like when they're kind of hidden in your body. We talk about the window of threat. And so identifying personal triggers, and both of us being therapists and social workers, we talk about practical skills that can really help prevent and or navigate emotional burnout and unintentional emotional neglect of self or children or partner. And why doing these practices before the heat of the moment makes all the difference. And so we're going to pause it there, leave it there, and we're going to bring you back for part 2 of this episode next week. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chill Like a Mother podcast.